Hi there, my name is Scott Haslam. I'm the branch secretary of Leeds number 1, and this episode is entitled for my guest Saf Khan. And Saf Khan was the branch secretary of Northwest number 1 before he'd been elected to the postal executive in 2001. So as we know, the elections are on. And what I committed to last month was anyone wants to be on our feed, then they only have to ask and we'll sort that out. This is a recording. It's not a live one. I will be doing some live ones with candidates. But the reason why this is recorded is because of the time of the day. It's not the best time to be putting this video out. And in fairness to Saf, he's visited a number of our units. And quite frankly, we couldn't diarise an evening session. So, Saf, I don't know if you want to quickly elaborate a bit more on who you are, what you've done, and one thing or another from my introduction.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Saf Khan, currently on the CW Postal Executive. I was elected on it September 2021 and been in Royal Mail now for 33 years. I was a local rep for 18 years, sub-ADR, various other positions, treasurer and branch secretary before I got elected onto the Postal Executive. I am a proud Yorkshireman for anybody from Leeds watching it. Born and bred in Bradford, proud of it still, and currently living across the Red Rose County of Rochdale.
Excellent, Saf. So we've got the only Yorkshire candidate on the ticket with us today. So that is great news for us, our Yorkshire colleagues. So the elections that is going on is you'll get a ballot paper. I will be putting out our recommendations over the next, or we may have already put them out on our socials in due course. But today we're going to talk about the two specifics what Saf would be standing in. One is the National Executive Council, and the second one is the Postal Executive Council. And there's some distinct differences between it, because the question is, well, why are they standing for both? Well, it's just how the union has constructed its rules, in that so many of the postal executives sit on the national executives. But when you are making your vote, what you do have to understand and recognise and read, ideally, the addresses, as well as considering what the branches have recommended, is that the people who end up on the NEC don't necessarily, well, in fact, they don't necessarily, they don't, in addition, would they actually go on the NEC and the PEC? So yes, they deal with the postal executive, but there's also this extra responsibility of dealing with general stuff. And those general stuff, to be fair, Saf, don't they, which you haven't had that exposure as such up to press, because it's just been on the postal executive, is very much about running the union. So what I'm talking about, the running of the union, you may know that the national officer, for instance, for health and safety has now gone, because the NEC had agreed a policy which put for the branches, and branches then endorsed it in a conference. Okay, so that policy wouldn't have got to that conference if it weren't for those members on the NEC. So what we have to think about in terms of the NEC is we need people on there that understand what our members need from a collective, from a union in a national context. Okay, so there's some interesting things going to be happening over the next 12 months. Some of them is further restructuring of the union, covering health and safety, covering regions, the number of regions. There's even feedback that they might be affecting branches. The question about head office and selling that and moving that. What does that look like? Where should it be situated? The people on the NEC will be making that decision on your behalf. So you need to be very, very clear in who you are selecting. One of the fundamentals, though, of the NEC is very much about agreeing a budget, membership increases, and that financial aspect, because all these gets put to that committee and they make that decision. Now, experience tells me that if people have run a branch secretary, for instance, then they may well be already tuned in to be able to slot into those positions. Now, Saf's in a privileged position that he was a branch secretary for how long?
6 years.
6 years. So he's got 6 years experience of running a branch. And when we were speaking before, he actually, were focused on recruitment, focused on organising, and managed to increase his numbers accordingly. So with that in mind, Staff has put his address out, and it talks about various things politically. And actually, for Royal Mail, right, there is a big political question, and that is about the new governance model. And actually, it's the NEC that will head up that campaign and trying to get that. Okay. So with that, Saf, what's your thoughts on that type of job that if you were elected, and how you want to take that on?
Yeah, look, currently I've got colleagues that I work on the postal executive and the NEC. So look, I think one of the things we obviously putting in for it is part of it, because it does knock on effect onto getting position on the PEC. But as a father of 5 and being working class person all my life, I think Scott's spot on. We have got an issue for future of the union. So I think I also believe personally, the wider society, how our decisions and how we support, the Labour Party and what the Labour Party does for us and our members and our family. I mean, I'll just touch on one thing recently, and it's affected a lot of people and colleagues, ex-colleagues that we have worked with. Is the winter fuel allowance cap. You could say Labour's gone for a quick pinch there with attack on pensioners, and my opinion would be, as a CW, that we do sponsor some CW MPs, that they should be supporting CW values, and then values is what is taken to NEC for Dave, Ward, etc., to talk to them MPs, because that's what our members would want.
It's excellent. So there is some general broad questions that need to be considered when putting your ex in the NEC candidates. It needs to be people that have that experience and can see the bigger picture on where the CW fits in the community, not just in the workplace. But the postal executive is your bread and butter, and that's what we're going to go on to now. So the postal executive. If you read Saf's election address, there is a number of things on there that we've sort of dumbed down, if you want a better phrase, into sort of 3 key areas. And one of them is about your job security. So in terms of job security, Saf, what is it that you're going to be standing on a ticket of?
Right. So job security myself, like I said earlier, 33 years in the business, has given the job with Royal Mail, and it is the company we do work for. Royal Mail has given me the security in life now, as I'm getting in my nearly into my late 50s. It's something that we will be fighting hard, and I think we are having conversations, as you'll be aware. We've got a new takeover bid of the Royal Mail Group, and there is a lot of noise saying, "Oh well, it's a tragedy," but we're already sold off because all the shares, the top shareholders own the company, and myself and yourselves as colleagues got shares. So I think one of the biggest things we've got to protect is obviously the future terms and conditions with the new owner, and I know there's been ongoing talks at the high level with the DGSP and General Secretary, but we need security, and that security can't be short term for a couple of years or less.
So on that, in terms of the IDS takeover and the USO changes, is actually like the sticky bot. So actually, if you release that, so we know exactly what the USO changes is going to be, when it's going to be implemented, and the due diligence test through the government is actually done, and if that means that IDS are allowed to progress their takeover, and if there's a lot of ifs and buts here, if the percentage threshold to take over the company or to do the compulsory buyout, then that means all this talking that the leadership is doing, Saf is basically saying that as part of the postal executive, he agrees with that as an approach, because the protections he's standing on a ticket to deal with is about fatigue. So if you change the USO, we want a better balance with perhaps fewer Saturdays for deliveries, for instance, to be working, maybe some form of moving work around to reduce the amount of footwalk per person and promote and lengthen careers, isn't it?
Yeah. Just on that, obviously, the Ofcom said the USO wasn't affordable moving forward for the company. Obviously, you've probably all heard Royal Mail. There's a lot of stuff being bandied about a 3-day week. Well, 3-day week wouldn't have been good for any of us. That would have been major job losses and pay, by the way, because you wouldn't be getting the same pay for a 3-day working than we are for the 5 days or 6 days or 4 days what people are doing. One of the things, obviously, with the USO changes, there is work being done in the background, and all depending on the takeover from the IDS group, Daniel Lajinsky's team, is how we as a union mould the USO that best fits purpose for the company and for ourselves and for our members. I mean, one of the things I touch on is fatigue. Fatigue has become a bit major issue as the rounds have got bigger and bigger. But do we do something that gives us more time off from the fatigue? I mean, we have got some offices up and down the country that the Wellington week still. Wellingtons were brought in back in 2007-9, I think it was, agreement. And people are still doing it. Where you work 6 days a week for so many weeks, then you get a week off. One of the things that we are looking at possibly is 9-day fortnights. Saturdays, there'll be less deliveries, so people will be getting more Saturdays off. And that's work currently being done by the DGSP and the postal executive members that are involved.
So in terms of why the DGSP and such has taken that policy on, is very much about some of the incumbents actually endorsing that as a policy going forward in the current postal executive. So you'd be fair to say that you've been part and parcel of driving that force, haven't you? Yeah,
I'd agree with that, because look, I think we couldn't just sit on our hands and let Ofcom dictate to Royal Mail what Royal Mail wanted, a 3-day week. So we have taken the step months ago to start the discussions with the company on maybe it will be a less formal USO what it is currently, but one that will probably give us more protection for us and the company.
And actually, sustainability is key, which then ties into our second main point, which is about protections. So Saf is also standing on the ticket of it, is protecting as best as he can as a layperson on the executive who holds the officers to account on your behalf. That is what the postal executive is there, is about protecting the existing terms and conditions, because Royal Mail, as you know, deployed an unagreed set of terms and conditions that the union is vehemently against. In fact, its policy at this year's conference was very clear, is that we need to get those terms and conditions up. And that is the sort of third area that Saf is sort of covering off. And what that is, it's about levelling up the terms and conditions of people on the new monthly contract that is unagreed. But there's been very little about what that contract and how that mechanism should look like. It's all linked to this USO changes, the IDS buyout, and that's where we go on. But I mean, is there other things that we want to talk about in terms of levelling up and protections, perhaps around new technologies and the trials and such?
Yeah, look, just to start off with about the new terms and conditions that are imposed on the workforce or for new entrants. That wasn't agreed by the union or the postal executive. That was Royal Mail's executive action back in December 2022. So we are working, and joint working groups are being set up how we could try to change that, because the attrition rate, some parts of the country, is costing the business money. and yourself and Scott and other colleagues. We've been in the business from 5 years to 10 years to 30 to 40 odd years, and that's because we had decent, and that's because of the union. We've had decent terms and conditions and protections to stay in the job. But that's something we are, like you said, it's confidence policy. Like Scott said, it's confidence policy to try to level up them members' terms and conditions, and I think we will make progress in the near future.
Excellent. So I think that covers off pretty much a lot of the main points of Saf's election address, and that's on the NEC and the postal executive side of stuff. Our preference is that we'd like to see Saf back on the postal executive, but I actually think, as an ex-branch secretary, and the fact that he's now done the first term on the postal executive, is now a position where he should be able to step up to the NEC and actually deliver and be accountable to us, the members, to represent us at a national level in not just the postal side of stuff, but actually the whole running of the union. Is there anything you'd like to say just to wrap up before we...
Yeah, just to sum up, I was elected September 2021, and then we all know what happened from 2022 onwards. From March, April, I went into dispute with the company, and I think myself and a couple of new colleagues, we've had the baptism of fire, and I think we have stood up to the challenges. It's not been easy, still not easy, but I think we have I have the experience that taking that forward, and I'd like to ask you, the members, to give me that opportunity and help re-elect Saf Khan.
Remember, unity is strength.